Just like Chennis Berry the year before, there are 3 head coaches who came up from the Division II level to the FCS HBCU ranks. But did they follow the Chennis Berry method? Oh, yeah. It's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 back in bonus bets when you put down a $5 bet that wins. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Morgan Price, who just scored a perfect 10 on the uneven bars, and it continues her trend of being the exact the exact athlete that she was expected to be when she came to Fisk. In segment 2, North Carolina A&T's Landon Glasper has entered the transfer portal after being suspended indefinitely by the Aggies. I want to break down why this isn't too shocking and what comes after for Glasper and North Carolina A&T. But speaking of A&T, let's switch over to the gridiron. Let's switch over to the football field because North Carolina A&T has an old familiar face that is returning as their head coach, and his name is Sean Gibbs. Sean Gibbs, along with Sam Shade and also Tremaine Jackson, are 3 HBCU coaches on the FCS level who were on the Division II level just last year. To me, I can't help but reference Chennis Berry. And I may have said this a couple of times on this show. I know I have. It's just a matter of how many is a couple. But to me, I look at Chennis Berry as a blueprint. We talk about celebrity coaches and guys with no experience coming in. And did we see 2 of those come in this year in Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson? Yes. We saw 2 HBCUs hire former NFL players with very limited to no coaching experience. But at the same time, we saw 3 HBCUs hire coaches who were head coaches last year on the Division II level. I won't let the crowd of 5 who are spewing negativity be extremely loud and not speak about the crowd of 50 who's spewing positivity, but maybe isn't as loud, because negativity is always the louder argument. It's always the louder anger, right? Like those are the things that we are going to naturally elevate, is the things that we're naturally going to pay attention to. But I think we should talk about the real trend that's going on, and that is Division II to FCS HBCU coaching. Is Chennis Berry the first ever to do that? No, he is not. I don't want you to be confused and think that I'm saying that Chennis Berry is the first of his kind. But here's the thing about trends. It's not about who did it first. It's about who popularized it at that time, right? We're not talking about the originator of something. We're talking about what I believe is a current trend, and I believe it sparked from Chennis Berry. I think that Chennis Berry's success coming over from Benedict College to South Carolina State is going to spark some people into saying, oh, we got to do that. I got to go get me one. I got to get me a Chennis Berry. I believe that's what we are going to see. And I think that 2025 was the first step in that. I think that that was credible proof of what I believed would happen. I don't know if I said that on the show. I hope I did, so it doesn't seem like I'm just making takes in hindsight and saying, oh, see, I knew this. But no, I believe I've spoke about this before. So to me, there's 3 things that I really look at on why I believe Chennis Berry is this blueprint. 1, the fact that he's the most recent. 2, the fact that he brought over a lot of his old players. The same way that Teddy Keaton did that when he went from Allen to Clark, but that was on the same Division II subdivision and even in the same SIAC conference. Berry did it D2 to FCS, but he brought a lot of Benedict College players with him. And in third, he had instant success. 1 is just an observation of mine. 3 is something that can't be determined. 2 is something that we can talk about. When you're looking at these 3 coaches, did they follow the Chennis Berry method? By that, I mean, did they bring a lot of players from their former universities to their new school? See, you already have Tremaine Jackson, who stands out. He went from Valdosta to Prairie View. He didn't go Division II HBCU to FCS HBCU. He was a Division II coach, yes, but he did not come from the HBCU ranks, though he does have HBCU in his background. Anyway, let's go over the 3 and look at them, because is there going to be an Ashad Hall, a Jaden Broughton, a Caden High? Like, is there going to be guys in this mix who come over? Who knows? That's thing to predict. But what I can do is look at the amount of players. Chennis Berry brought 10 players over. So when I'm asking, did Shade, did Jackson, did Gibbs follow the Chennis Berry method? It means that they bring a bunch of players. Sean Gibbs brought 2 players from Fort Valley State to North Carolina A&T, a defensive back and an offensive lineman. Tremaine Jackson brought 2 players from Valdosta to Prairie View, and that was a linebacker and an offensive lineman. So it's not a lot of players there. You can't really necessarily say that he would be replicating, either one of them would be replicating the Chennis Berry method. You can't say that. But here's the thing. If we're really talking about the Chennis Berry method, of the 3 Division II head coaches who are now FCS HBCU head coaches, there's one guy who really emulates Chennis Berry more than the other 2, and that's Sam Shade. The same way that Berry went from Benedict to South Carolina State in the conference after winning the SIAC, Sam Shade went from Miles to Alabama A&M, stayed within the state after winning the SIAC. So I think that comparison is right there for you. And guess who brought the most players from his own university? And that was Sam Shade. Sam Shade emulates Chennis Berry by staying within the state, winning that same conference, elevating to the FCS ranks, all of it together, right? But then he's also brought a bunch of his guys. Chennis Berry brought 10, Sam Shade brought 8. I can't say that it's just a success thing, though, because Tremaine Jackson had a great team. He was in the Division II championship. The fact that he didn't bring his players over to Prairie View could mean a multitude of things. It could be they didn't want to go to Prairie View. It could be they wanted to stay at Valdosta. It could be that they wanted to go to a different university. It could be that he just wanted to not bring them. Like, all of those things. It didn't have to be a denial of him. It could have been a denial on his part. So, and it's just things like that we don't necessarily know for sure. So I won't assume the negative. But Miles did have a really good season. I will say this. Miles did not bring some of the heavy hitters that I thought that he may try to bring over from Miles University to Alabama A&M, right? I thought that maybe you get a Gennaro Scott. I thought maybe you get a Jermichael Rogers. Like, you did get good players from Miles. Don't get me wrong. But I thought that you would have got your most impactful defensive lineman. I thought that you would have got your lead running back. Maybe even try to pair Gennaro Scott with Donovan Eaglin. I thought that would have been a really interesting pairing. But at the same time, it's not what happened. I went to Scott's Twitter. He still has Miles there. I mean, technically, it's not too late. It could always happen. Eric Phoenix didn't come over to South Carolina State until, I believe, halfway through. Was he there? I don't think he was a mid-season guy or a mid-year guy, even though I kind of remember him being in spring ball. But I have conflicting memories. I remember him signing after spring ball, but I remember him in spring ball. So maybe it was like halfway through the spring season or something. I don't know. But that's just kind of the things that I'm looking at with this. 3 Division II coaches, Sean Gibbs, Tremaine Jackson, Sam Shade. Of the triumvirate, only Shade really brought a lot of his players over. So we'll see how that works out for him. As the week goes on, we'll continue talking about different recruiting classes. Like, we'll talk about Vic. We'll talk about Jackson. We'll talk about or Deshaun Jackson. I mean, we'll talk about Jackson State as well. I'm sure we'll talk about Howard. Like it's the recruiting season, so this could really extend for a couple of weeks. This is the biggest football topic that we'll have for a while. So I know that we're going to go through quite a few. I know Morgan has a new quarterback that we'll talk about. I have to look at Howard's because I'm looking to see if Howard has a quarterback coming in, and if so, how many do they have coming in? So there's different things that I'm looking for from different signing classes, recruiting classes. So, but as we push forward, we're going to move past and we're going to go ahead and go into the the basketball. We're going to go ahead and go into North Carolina A&T and talk about the transfer of Landon Glasper because there's a lot that surrounds this. Let's break it down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. There were so many things that you could have made money on if we're talking about the Super Bowl. That was last night. I don't think most people expected the Eagles to get down like that. Sheesh. I didn't think they were going to get down like that, but it's okay. I was rooting for the Chiefs, but at least I was able to enjoy my halftime show. So neither here nor there. But now that we're moving on more into basketball season and we're going to get into draft season and we got college basketball, professional basketball, the Luka return to Dallas should be happening in about a month. You had Anthony Davis. There's a lot of things. Go into basketball season to make yourself a little bit of extra change. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com. And if you're new to FanDuel, you get $150 back in bonus bets. Put down a $5 bet. If it wins, get your $150 in bonus bets. Just go ahead and go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On today. It's going to recap the biggest trades of the deadline. It's going to recap the Super Bowl. That's probably what Monday's episode is going to be all about, the Super Bowl. But make sure you stay in tune as we move into basketball season as well. Landin Glasper has entered the transfer portal. And for me, I don't know if this feels like that big of a loss for North Carolina A&T. And I understand that sounds crazy when you're looking at somebody who was a top 2 scorer for the team. To say it doesn't feel like a big loss, why would I say that? I was going to ease in and just talk about it. But the truth of the matter is, I expected this. And I don't know if you operate the same way I do. But for me, if I know something is on the way, it can't really hurt that bad. You have to remember that Glasper was suspended indefinitely. And for me, that indefinite suspension was the end of his time in North Carolina A&T. And because of that, ripping off the Band-Aid or better yet, reopening a wound can hurt, but it rarely hurts the way that it did when you got it, right? Like just popping a stitch can be painful. But trust me, that thing that sliced you probably hurt more. And that's the way that I look at it. The suspension was the initial injury. He was indefinitely suspended. Did I expect him to come back? No. But indefinite does mean it could be 3 weeks. It could be the season. It could be forever. So I understand if maybe you felt like Landon Glasper was going to come back to the Aggies at some point. I didn't. So because of that, any kind of impact I felt was immediate. I think that's just probably a frame of reference, though, because if you say, oh, well, we're never getting them back, let's go over what you are losing. You are losing one of your 2 best scorers. You're probably going to lose both of your best scorers, to be honest. You're probably going to lose both of them. But what do we know? Landon Glasper was a part of a trio that got suspended for violating team rules. That is what we know for sure. That has been announced. That has been reported. And I don't think that there's any misunderstanding that could happen when you're talking about that. It's pretty clear, right? Like, it's vague, but it's clear. Now, the other side of this is that you have to question whether or not they're connected to the gambling ring that is connected to a North Carolina A&T game versus Delaware, I believe, on January 9th. The reason I have to question that is I've heard people, right? Like, I've seen conversations that the suspension is not connected to it. My thing is, I haven't heard that information personally. And I'm going with what the ESPN report said. And the ESPN report said that they reached out to A&T for comments on that event. And the response was, we suspended players for an obvious team rule or something like that, some sort of phrasing of that. Because of that, it's easy to assume that the suspension is because of that. Because why would that be a response? I said this last week. I'll say it again. If I say, hey, man, what you know about this? And I say anything, if I say anything in response, I don't care what it is, you're going to assume I am talking in connection to what you just asked me. Right? Like I think that's just normal. If I say, hey, man, how you feeling outside? I was walking to the store. I seen a few people in jackets. I'm going to assume it's cold. Like, just think about it. If I say, what's the weather like out there? And I say, yeah, I seen a few people in some jackets. It's probably cold, huh? That's just the only thing I could think of. And that's the way that ESPN reported it. ESPN reported it as, what's going on with North Carolina A&T in this gambling ring? Do you have any comments? And A.D. Hilton's comment was, we suspended 3 players recently. Is that a confirmation that they are connected? No, it is not. So you still have to speak with at least a margin of speculation, which is what I am doing. I am speculating because no one is telling me personally that that's not the case. But at the same time, I think that it leaves a cloud. I think at the worst, if you want to use speculation, if you want to say don't jump the gun, it does leave a tad bit of a cloud over Landon Glasper and his teammates who were suspended. Because now you have to do your own research. I would love if somebody came out and said he was suspended because he was late to meetings on a repeated basis. He was suspended because of activity on a road game that he wasn't supposed to partake in. Like, I would love if somebody said that, because the way I see it, the way I read it, I have to assume the worst case scenario. And if you're a team, now you got to do your own research, because you don't know, why was he suspended? We got to do some investigation. Just go ahead and take that uncertainty and throw it away. That's the way. That's the way that I look at it personally. I don't know. So the allegations to me will stick on them until somebody wipes them away. Where he lands will tell me a lot, though. Where he land does tell me a lot, because some people are going to be scared away, just regardless. It may be no, I want to go look. Nah, you seem connected to this. I'm not even going to bother looking. But he's a prolific scorer, so you're going to be losing points off the board. But if he goes to another mid-major, I'm going to say all clear. Because I just don't think a mid-major is going to take him on. Like, at the end of the day, I don't think that a mid-major is going to take on a Landin Glasper if he is still involved in what they are saying he's involved in. So if he goes there, that means they did their background check and everything is all clear. If he goes to a Division II school and nothing has been answered, right? Like, we're going to operate under the premise that nobody has answered anything. So it's still a cloud of uncertainty. If he goes to a D2 school, I'm going to say I still don't know, because I do think that Division II schools will take the risk on a guy like Glasper, who has the allegations. Like, look, we don't know what's going on. We're going to go ahead and take this risk. But if it gets extended and extended and extended, the more convicted I will feel that the allegations are true. I'd lean more to that then. But I definitely say the allegations are playing a part in why you don't have a team. But anyway, that's just my point of view on it. Let me say this. If he gets found connected to this gambling ring, I don't think he ever touches a basketball on a collegiate court again. I really don't. I think that's the end of him. So I'll be watching to see where he goes, because it will tell me a lot. It will tell me a lot. If he goes mid-major, I know he's good. He's green. Or if I just got some inside information, somebody was like, oh, yeah, I know, and I heard this from such and such. But until I get any of that, I have to just speculate. And speculation looks bad if you look at that ESPN report in the timeline in which the communication happened. Also, what if the communication didn't happen in that timeline? Let me just say that real quick. If for whatever reason it was not a ask this question and the answer was we suspended players, That changes a lot too. But the way I read that ESPN report, that is how it happened. Anyway, let's push forward and look at Morgan Price, who has been the standard since joining the Fisk gymnastics team, and she lived up to that standard every step of the way. We'll look at that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Morgan Price has a perfect score on the uneven bars at the latest event at Temple University. I don't know how to say this any other way, so I'll say this. There were a lot of expectations that were going to be placed on Morgan Price when she came to Fisk University. A lot of pressure that was going to be placed on her. I think that pressure exists at the university. I think that pressure exists in the gymnastics community. I think that the spotlight adds to the pressure because you were committed to the University of Arkansas and you decide to go to this HBCU upstart gymnastics program. People are going to watch to see what you are going to be. I will not consider myself a gymnastics expert. I would not consider myself an expert in the way that I know how the community feels, what is important to them, how the trends go. What I will say is that to me, when Morgan Price made this move, it was going to be watched by many gymnasts to see if she could succeed. And if she could succeed, there was life for Fisk. Like the positive of Morgan Price going to Fisk is, oh, you get a high profile person, and maybe that recruiting ticks up immediately of, oh, I want to follow what Morgan Price did. But the downside of it is when Morgan Price's career is over, her collegiate career is over, you are going to be judged as a university based off of what she did. That is a heavy weight. Luckily for Fisk, she's done everything every step of the way to show that Fisk University can build great gymnasts. They can support great gymnasts. You look in her freshman year, she was an All-American. You look in her sophomore year, she was a national champion. And now early in her junior year, she scores a perfect 10, which is an extreme rarity, and it's only the 5th perfect 10 that we've seen in 2025. This is how you take a program that is an upstart and build it into something that is a destination. I think that's the best way to put it. Because if Morgan Price does not live up to her billing as a high school, here's the thing. There's many people who come out of high school, go to the collegiate ranks, and don't live up to it. However, when it comes to Morgan Price, if she went to Fisk and didn't live up to it, people are going to blame that all on Fisk. And I think it was going to make recruiting much more difficult because that didn't happen, thankfully, and she has flourished. Now, I think when she leaves, you'll still have people saying, I can go to Fisk and do it at Fisk because of all of the success that she's had. National champion, All-American, and now lately a perfect 10. Let's break that down. So I want to give a shout out to Gymnastics Now. Gymnastics Now, let me show you some love because I didn't know what I was watching on a technical level. I didn't. When I watched the uneven bars, I said, oh, okay, she's flowing. I'm saying, okay, she's moving. She went up to the high bar. I'm sounding like such a novice. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm ignorant than a mug, right? I understand that. But when I go to Gymnastics Now to read more information, they break down what she did. So she had the toe on, the Maloney, the Bell handstand, and then stuck a full twisting double back dismount. Did I know she stuck the landing? Yes, but that's all I would have said. I didn't know that it was a full twisting double back dismount. So I want to give a shout out to Gymnastics Now for allowing me to know the technical information and know the technical terms about what it is I was watching with Morgan Price. Because when I watched it, I said, dang, she nice. That looked good. That was clean. Yes, she stuck that. Oh, she put her feet on the bar. That was me. I own my ignorance at all times. And I'm thankful that somebody allows me to not be ignorant for long. So that was what Morgan Price did. And if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it, please go do. It was, and I'm sure if you type in Morgan Price on social media, it'll be the first thing that comes up. But it was a fantastic performance, in my opinion. It was something that I I don't want to over dramatize it, right? Because I think I have a tendency to do that. But it was something that I enjoyed to watch. And when you start hearing the fact that it's only the fifth perfect 10, you look at it, it's only the second one on the uneven bars. You start thinking about how much of a rarity it is, because that's the other thing is when you don't know a lot about a sport, you don't know what's extremely special, what's great, what's good. It can be difficult. I know a perfect 10 is really good. Like that's a great performance. It's perfect. But when you hear how much of a rarity it is, I think that really drives it home. There have been 5 people to achieve that in 2025. One of them is Morgan Price. One of them goes to Fisk University. So, and they're the only HBCU gymnastics program still alive for right now. I know they got one more coming. I can't remember the name of it. You have to forgive me. I know Talladega just shut down. Ironically, Talladega had Kirsten Johnson, and she's at Temple where this event happened. Full circle, maybe. I don't know. I always wish that she went to uh Fisk. I did. But it is okay. Shout out to Kirsten though. Anyway, tomorrow's episode, I'm not sure where we're going to take it right now. I think that we'll probably go into Sean Jackson or Michael Vick's recruiting class, because they got big classes. So I think we'll probably do that on tomorrow. At least one segment will be about that. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.